In today's video, we're going to do a review, and that review today is going to be on the RWB Disc Detainer pick, and this is the Gen 3 version. Now, before we get into the review, I just want to say I'm not paid to do reviews. Sometimes companies will send me tools to have a look at and feature if I so choose. In this case, RWB has donated this pick for my 20,000 subscriber giveaway. But before it went out on the giveaway, I thought I would do a review because, yeah, I think it's a pretty fantastic Disc Detainer pick. So let's get into it. The Disc Detainer pick comes in this hard plastic case, which is good, keeps everything safe, and you've got these 4 clasps on it, so it shouldn't go opening up accidentally and rolling around all over the floor. There are a couple of options you can choose when you order the Disc Detainer pick from RWB Custom Picks. So as standard, it comes with a case, and it comes with the tensioning wheel and the pick, and then a front tensioning tip. Front tensioning tip and pick, I should say, and that will get you into the vast majority of Disc Detainer picks. But there are also 4 other options that you can get. This is the full kit. We'll go through these tips in a minute, but first of all, we'll just take a look at the pick itself. So if you're not familiar with what a Disc Detainer lock is and why you would need a specialised pick like that rather than a more standard pick like that one, let me just quickly show you this cutaway. So Disc Detainer picks, the keys kind of look a little bit weird, a little bit chunky, and they have generally a sort of square or rectangle profile. And what you've got inside the lock is all of these discs, which as I rotate the key, they turn to the correct position, and then the lock can open. So you can't use a normal pick for a Disc Detainer lock. You need a Disc Detainer specific lock. A specific pick, sorry, which is exactly what we've got here. So the pick itself is made up of 4 pieces. So we've got this section at the back, we've got this section at the front. In there we have got a tensioning tip, which is secured in with a couple of grub screws either side, and then the picking tip itself, which is secured with these 2 grub screws at the back. So the way you would use it is you'd put it inside the lock to the correct depth. And then this applies tension, usually clockwise, and then you can pick anti-clockwise. You can do it the other way around, it just does depend on your preference. But this bit here controls the picking tip when we use the front tensioning tip. So you would, put tension on the lock like that, and then pick this way. So the tool itself comes here with these engravings on it. So you've got these kind of gradations, is that a word, all the way along the picking tip there, and then we've got these dots here, and they've got 2 sets on either side, and you'll notice that the spacing on these dots is slightly different. These ones are closer together, these ones are further apart. Now most Disc Detainers that I've picked use the dots which are further apart. And what that means, when you set up your pick, you kind of want to zero it, if you like. So you'll get this line here in line with this dot here, and that would be the first disc there, and we would pick that. So I'm looking at this dot up here, that would be the first disc, and we'd pick that, until we got our little click, and then we would drop down back down to 0 again, move it along to the next disc, which is this one at the bottom. Pick that one, go back down again, go along to the next disc, which is this one here at the top, and then pick that one, and just work our way through the lock. Now some Disc Detainer locks come with a different amount of discs, and this is set up hopefully to be able to deal with all of them. So I'm not going to count all the dots, but what have we got? I'm going to count all the dots. We've got 7, I think we've got 14 or so discs on that side, and even more on that side. I think there's one lock that I found in my collection which is a Defiant, and it does use this spacing that is closer together. Now it also comes with this tensioning wheel, so you can use it as it's set up there, but to give you a little bit more leverage, you can pop this tension wheel on, and it also comes with a little Allen key, and if I tighten that on there, this does 2 things when you're picking your Disc Detainer lock. Firstly, it gives you a wider diameter to apply tension, so you've got a better control on tension rather than just on that small wheel. But if you want the small wheel, you can have that as well. It's just preference. The other thing it does is it gives you this, a much wider flat surface. And that means that, I don't know if this one's going to fit in here because it's the wrong tip. Yeah, it means that the pick can sit flat against the body like that, because what can happen with some Disc Detainer picks is you're picking it, but you've got to keep it, level that way and level that way. You can't be picking at angles. If you start picking at angles, you're going to get caught up. It's going to be very difficult to get through those discs. So it's important you keep the tool level with the lock, and this tension ring with a flat face just helps you to be able to do that. What else about this? So construction of it, it's stainless steel. The tension ring actually is aluminium, which I didn't realise when I first got the tool. I'd heard that it was stainless steel, and I thought it was all stainless steel. I think there's a reason for that. I mean, partly I guess it would come down to cost, but also if this was made out of stainless steel, it would be a lot heavier. So aluminium's quite light, and having a big chunk of stainless steel on the front of this pick might make it unbalanced. So I think that's why the decision was taken, just my guess, to manufacture this ring in aluminium. But the actual tool itself is all stainless steel. I believe that the picking tips, this is the front tensioning picking tip, is made from an ejector pin. The tensioning tip itself, which if I undo this screw here, you should be able to see, that comes out, that's separate. Is made from stainless steel as well, as is the body itself, and that gives it a nice weight, and it does give it a sort of, it just feels quite good quality when you compare it to the 3D printed picks that you can get. So the tensioning tip, just get myself sorted out here. With Disc Detainer locks, generally you've got your to set your pick up for each individual lock. If we look down the keyway there, we can see that that's about 1 centimetre down into the lock for us to get tension on. So you might have to adjust this out to that sort of angle, or bring it all the way back in, because some of those tensioning discs are nearer the front. But because it can go in and out like that, it just gives you the option to set it up perfectly for the lock that you're picking. So that's the pick itself, and we'll have a look now at the tension tips that you can get in the kit. As mentioned in the introduction, the front tensioning tip, which is this one here that was in the Disc Detainer tip when we took it out of the packet, comes as standard, but all of these ones are additional extras. So yeah, with the front tensioning tip, this is the actual tensioner, and this is the picking tip, so that rotates and sets all the discs. So we also have got the option of this picking tip, which looks slightly different, but it does operate in the same way. So this part here is the tensioning tip, and this part in the back is for picking the discs. But if you look, try and get you in focus. If you look at that picking tip, you can see that one corner, just in the top left there, difficult to get it to focus. Yeah, in the top left there is kind of sort of chamfered off. And that's because this picking tip is specific for anchor-lass padlocks. If we look down there, you can see the profile of the discs has got that sort of corner which matches up with a picking tip. What that means is that if you use the standard picking tip without modification, you're not going to be able to get it in there. So you're not going to be able to get anchor-lass padlocks picked. I've got to say, anchor-lass padlocks are one of my favourite Disc Detainer locks to pick. They give some really crisp feedback, so I'd recommend getting the anchor-lass picking tip. The next picking tip is the rear tensioning picking tip, and that is the opposite from the front tensioning tip. So let me just show you what I mean. So this portion here, so yeah, on the rear tension, on the front tensioning, that part is the picking tip. On the rear tensioning, that part is going to be your tensioner, because it goes right down the back of the lock, and then you apply tension, and then you use this front section to pick the discs. If you don't have that as an option, if you do happen to buy a rear tensioning lock, you're not going to be able to pick it with a front tensioning tip. With the front tensioning tip, you can also pick locks that do tension in the middle. I might show you that when we do some picking later. So I think out of all of the picking tips, the front tensioning is the most versatile, will get you most opens, which is why it's been included with the set, and the others are optional extras. The last two picking tips are varying stages of being incomplete, and I'll explain why that is in a minute. So this picking tip is for the Abloy Sentry, which is that cutaway that I showed you. So we've got the tensioning tip there, so it's front tensioning, and this would be your picking tip. The tensioner, get myself in focus, the tensioner is ready to go. It will fit in there and it will tension this lock, but the picking tip, as you can see, is just a big round circle. It's not going to get in there. That's because The profile of these discs is kind of, there's a lot of walding in there, and you have to do a lot of machining to get a tip to fit down there. So I'm sure RWB has the skills to make those tips, but it does mean that they're going to end up really, really expensive. So rather than do that, he's given you the option that if you do want to pick Abloys, if you do want to pick Sentries, Abloy Sentries, then you've got the tensioner part ready and the picking tip. You just need to shape this to fit in that keyway. There are various videos online to show you how to do that. Crispix does some really good tutorials for making Abloy tips. I'm going to leave a link to one of his videos down below so you can check that out. This last one here is for picking Abloy Classics. And this one is in a very, very basic state. This one requires a lot of tooling. So you can order these straight off of AliExpress. I think I got some from AliExpress a while ago. But obviously you have to wait for it to arrive, pay for postage, all that sort of stuff. So RWB does give you the option to include this tip. Again, you'd need to look at Crispix's video to show you exactly how to shape this, because it requires quite a lot of machining. If I show you my RWB pick, because that just happens to have an Abloy Classic picking tip in it. So with the Abloy Classics, the tensioner is rear tensioning, so that part there is for tensioning, and the picking tip you can see is really quite fine. So yeah, in order to pick Abloy Classics, you start with this and you end with that. So you can see most of the material does need to be taken off. It does require a reasonable bit of skill, a fair bit of time. But if you want to pick Abloy locks, you're going to have to do that, because I think there are a couple of commercially available tips, but they are either really crap or really expensive. There doesn't seem to be currently much in between. So if you do want to start picking Abloy disc detainers, you are going to have to do a fair bit of work. Okay, I've got my anchor lass padlock secured in the vise, and I've just turned all the discs clockwise. It's worth saying that a turner doesn't come with this kit, but you can just use a bottom of the keyway tensioner. I'm just using this bit of shaped aluminium, which I find easier for anchor lass padlocks. So I've got the tool all set up. I've got my tension tip at the correct spacing. I've also got these two sections lined up so that as I pick through the discs, I'm just looking at the center of that dot and the very end section of the picking tool, so you can see that's lined up with that dot, and then I'll come out. When it lines up with the next dot, I should be on the right disc, and then with the next dot on the next disc, etc, etc. It takes a bit of time to set up this tool, but once you've got it set up for that individual lock, it does make it a lot easier. The other thing to mention just before I go and start picking this is that although I'm right-handed, I do pick left-handed disc detainers. So I tension with my right hand and pick with my left hand, while most other people would do it the other way around. So you just sort of reverse everything that you can see on screen. Just worth mentioning, just in case you're using this as a tutorial. So I'll align my picking tip, get him inside, put a bit of tension on that tension wheel. I'm going to slide right down to the back of the lock, turn the picking tip a little bit and pick up that last disc, because the last disc in an anchor lass padlock is a zero cut, so we can orientate ourselves with that one, but generally leave it alone. So I'll come out, find the next disc, very small click there, and the next disc. Nothing on that one, so I'm going to put him back. Go to the next disc. Tiny click there, onto the next disc, very small click there and a slight turn of the wheel. It's worth mentioning that when you start picking disc detainer padlocks or disc detainer locks, learning the feedback does take a long time. I think as good as this tool is, it did take me a good few weeks of frustration before I started understanding what it was I was feeling for. But after a bit of practice, it kind of becomes a bit more intuitive and you start understanding what it is you're feeling for. I don't think I was properly on that disc then. What I like to do is go through the lock and just set everything once, get a small click and move on. think that's the last disc now. We've got 2 clicks on that one, and I think we got that one picked. It's worth saying I've picked lots of anchor-less padlocks, and I've picked this particular lock quite a few times, so I think that does help me when it comes to picking it in a speedy time. Next padlock we're going to look at picking is this Gerda padlock. It's got a fair few discs in it, no false gates, and reasonably cheap. You can get these on eBay, so they are good beginner locks to start picking. And I've also got this tool set up, so I've got taken the anchor-less tip out, and I've put in the standard front tensioning tip that comes with this. I've adjusted the depth of the tensioning tip to pick up the first disc only, and I've also aligned the tool so that when I've got the edge of this section here in line with a dot around about there, I should be on a disc, and then as I take it out to the next dot around about there, I'll be on the next disc, and so on and so forth. So let's just rotate all the discs in this clockwise. This is just an old piece of aluminium. We can rotate them all clockwise, pop the tool in, and see if we can get this one picked. I'll pick this one in hand. Okay, got tension on it. We go right down to the back, turn the picking tip and come back on ourselves, and that tells me that the last disc should be there. We've got a little click off that one, find the next disc, little click there. There we go. And out and find the next disc. Little click there. Little click on the next disc. Small click on the next disc. Nice and talkative, this lock. Oh, that was the last disc. I just picked that again. So I'll put it back where I found it. That one I'm not getting anything on, so that could well be a 0 cut. Little click there, and we've got a turn of the wheel, and we've got this one picked. We've seen what you get in the box, and we have picked some locks, so let's just quickly talk about costs. So currently, if you buy the kit with just the front tensioner, obviously you get the tension ring as well in the case, that is £85, which is about $105 US. If you were to get all of the tips, as you've seen me have a look at throughout this review, then the whole thing would cost about £150, which is around about $186. It is worth mentioning that you can just buy the tips separately. I think when I bought this kit a couple of years ago from RWB, I bought the front tensioner, but I ordered the rear tensioner and also the anchor-less tip as well, because I wanted to be able to pick anchor-less padlocks. So let's just conclude this review. What do I think of this product? Well, I've got to say I'm a little bit biased. If you go back to some of my early videos, I made a disc detainer pick, and I really struggled to pick locks with it, and I think I put a video up saying this is the only disc detainer lock you'll see me pick, because I struggled with the tool. Then I kind of was seeing this one on Instagram, and I got the bug, and I decided to order it. This was a couple of years ago, and it really opened up the world of disc detainer locks for me, and I managed to pick everything up to sort of Abloys now. So I think it's a really nice kit. I found that just the weight of the tool and the quality of it, you can just see the fit between these two parts. It doesn't slide apart. It's a really nice friction fit, and that gives you a good control over the picking tip, and the balance of it, for me, it just really fits. So I am biased. I do really like this tool, and it is a pleasure reviewing it for RWB. Now, how can you get hold of him, because he doesn't have a website? Well, you can contact him on Instagram. So if you just search Instagram for RWB Custom Picks, you'll find him there. He can also be contacted through the Lock Pickers United Discord server. He is active on there, and he's also active on the UK Facebook Locksport groups, and I think a couple of the other sort of general ones as well. So that's where to find him. And I hope you found that interesting. If you're interested in getting into disc detainer picks, I highly recommend this pick. It's a good quality tool, and I found it really easy to use. Anyway, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.